Jack was holding the first stick of incense when Tu Tien quietly stepped away from the family altar. At first, he thought she was returning to the kitchen for another bowl. Instead, she walked past the dining table, past Uncle Dung and the relatives gathered beneath the veranda, until she stopped beside the open doorway. Jack lowered the incense. "Why are you standing there?" Tu Tien looked at the large remembrance book resting in Uncle Dung's hands. "That is where the book placed me." The room became silent. Mother Loi tightened her fingers around the folded red cloth beside the altar. Jack crossed the room and opened the book himself. The thick cream-colored page recorded the members of his late father's household who would offer incense during the annual memorial. His father's name appeared first. Mother Loi's name was beneath it. Then Jack's. The next line was empty. Tu Tien's name appeared nowhere on the page. Jack placed the incense back in its box. The ceremony had not begun, but he had already decided it could not continue like this. One blank line was about to force the family to answer a question they had avoided for too long. Was Tu Tien truly one of them, or had they only allowed her to live inside their home? Subscribe and stay with this family as Jack stops the most important memorial ceremony of the year. Rain tapped against the red-tiled roof. Long wooden tables beneath the veranda were already covered with bowls of food. Relatives and neighbors had traveled through the mountain rain and were waiting for the ceremony to begin. Uncle Dung stepped closer. "I copied these names from the old household record Mother Loi gave me," he explained. "I believe the page had already been checked." Jack looked at him. "Did you know Tu Tien's name was missing?" "No. Had I known, I would never have prepared the reading this way." Uncle Dung looked toward Mother Loi. "But your mother saw the page last night." Jack turned. "Mother?" Mother Loi looked at the portrait of her late husband above the altar. "I saw it." Tu Tien's expression changed. "You knew my name was missing?" "Yes. And you said nothing?" "I intended to correct it after the ceremony." Jack placed the book flat on the table. "Why afterward?" "The relatives had already begun traveling here. The offerings were prepared. Uncle Dung had copied the old record. I did not want an argument on your father's Memorial Day." Tu Tien returned to the altar. "Then begin the ceremony." Jack faced her. "No. This day is for your father. And this book says you do not belong to his family. It is an old page. It is an old page being placed on the altar today." Tu Tien lowered her voice. "Do not turn me into the reason his memorial is delayed. You are not delaying it. The decision to leave your name out is." Uncle Dung opened the book again. "We can correct the page immediately after the guests have eaten." Jack pointed at the blank line. "Everyone will hear the old list first. Quietly correcting it after they leave will not change what we chose to say in front of them." Mother Loi stepped between Jack and the altar. "Jack, enough. You knew. I said I would correct it. After everyone had gone home. I was protecting your father's ceremony. No. You were protecting everyone from an uncomfortable moment." Several guests beneath the veranda looked away. Tu Tien turned toward Jack. "Stop." He looked at her. "Do not fight the whole family for me without first asking what I want." Jack's anger left his face. He closed the remembrance book and stepped away from it. "You are right." Tu Tien had expected him to continue arguing. Instead, he asked, "What do you want?" She looked at the empty line. "I do not want my name added because you are angry. It would not be. I do not want Mother Loi to write it because all these people are watching." Mother Loi lowered her eyes. "And I do not want to stand at the altar while everyone believes I forced my way into this family." Jack waited. Tu Tien looked toward the open doorway. "I want to know whether my place exists when there is no ceremony, no audience, and no argument." Rain began falling more heavily into the lotus pond. Mother Loi slowly sat in the chair beside the altar. "When Jack first brought you here, I believed that giving you a room was enough," she said. Tu Tien remained standing. "I gave you food. I gave you work. When people asked about you, I said you were staying with us." Mother Loi looked down at the remembrance book. "But I rarely said that you were one of us." You let me live here, Tu Tien said. But you kept a distance between living here and belonging here. Yes, Mother Loi answered without defending herself. I told myself I was protecting you from gossip. The truth is that I was afraid. Afraid of me. Afraid of what people would say about my son building a life with a woman another family had rejected. The words hurt, but Mother Loi did not look away. I knew what they had done to you was cruel. I knew you had been blamed for something that was not your fault. She looked toward the relatives outside, but part of me still feared carrying their judgment into this house. Jack spoke quietly. You allowed strangers to decide how you would treat her. Yes. Mother Loi's voice weakened, and last night, when I saw the blank line, I knew the page was wrong. Then why did you leave it? Tu Tien asked. Because correcting it privately after everyone left felt easier than claiming you publicly before they arrived. Mother Loi lowered her head. That was cowardice. For several moments, no one moved. Then Mother Loi lifted the remembrance book from the altar. Instead of keeping it among the incense and offerings, she carried it to the family dining table. She placed it where the family normally share their meals. This decision should not be made only for a ceremony, she said. It should be made where we live with one another every day. Uncle Dung placed the pen beside the book. There is room on the page. Mother Loi reached for it. Tu Tien placed her hand over the blank line. Please wait. Mother Loi stopped. If you write my name, what will you call me? Mother Loi looked confused. A guest? A woman living in your son's house? Someone you are helping because you feel sorry for her? I have never felt sorry for you. Then who am I? Mother Loi held the pen, but did not write. Tu Tien continued. If my name is in this book, will I also have a voice when this family makes decisions? Yes. Will you speak when people discuss my past as though it is something shameful? I should have spoken before. Will I be called a daughter during a ceremony and treated like a guest when the guests are gone? No. Tu Tien looked directly at her. Is that what you are saying because Jack stopped the ceremony? Mother Loi placed the pen down. No. She turned toward Jack. Do not speak for me. Jack stepped back. Mother Loi faced Tu Tien again. I am saying it because you have lived as part of this family while I was still afraid to name what you had already become. She picked up the pen once more. Slowly, she wrote on the empty line. Tu Tien, daughter of this family. The ink remained wet as Mother Loi placed the pen down. A whisper moved among the guests. Tu Tien stared at the words but did not touch the book. Mother Loi pushed it toward her. That is what I am prepared to say in front of everyone. She opened a second line beneath her sentence and offered the pen to Tu Tien. But your name should also be written by the person who carries it. Tu Tien looked at her. I have said where I believe you belong, Mother Loi continued. You must decide whether you accept that place. Jack did not nod. He did not tell Tu Tien what the moment meant. He simply waited. Tu Tien looked toward the doorway where she had been standing minutes earlier. She remembered another door closing behind her, while her clothes waited outside in a brown suitcase. She remembered believing that being rejected by one family meant she would never deserve another. She also remembered the first meal Jack had placed in front of her, without asking what she could give him in return. A room could be offered. A bowl could be placed at a table. A name could be written in a book. But belonging could not be forced, even when the offer came from people she loved. Tu Tien picked up the pen. If I sign this page, I will not spend the rest of my life proving that I deserve the line. You should never have to, Mother Loi said. I will not accept being called a daughter today and treated like a visitor tomorrow. You should not accept that. And when people talk about my past, I will not stand alone while this family stays silent. Mother Loi's eyes filled with tears. You will not stand alone again because I am afraid to speak. Tu Tien lowered the pen. Her hand trembled once before she wrote her own name beside Mother Loi's sentence. Uncle Dung waited for the ink to dry. Then he asked both women, Are you ready for me to read it? Mother Loi nodded. Tu Tien looked at the page once more before nodding too. Jack reached for the incense box. Tu Tien touched his wrist. Not yet. She turned toward Mother Loi. "Did your husband know about me?" Mother Loi looked at the portrait. "He died before you came into Jack's life. Then I do not want to stand in front of him and pretend he chose me." Mother Loi nodded slowly. "You are right." She removed one stick of incense from the box. "But this memorial is not only about what he knew while he was alive." Mother Loi offered the incense to Tu Tien. "It is also about the family his life made possible." Tu Tien accepted it. Mother Loi stood before the altar. Jack moved beside her. Tu Tien remained one step behind them. Mother Loi turned back. She took Tu Tien's hand and brought her forward until all three of them stood in the same line. Uncle Dung quietly moved the extra chair from the far end of the veranda. He placed it beside Mother of the Wise chair at the family table. Then he opened the corrected book. He read Jack's father's name, then Mother of the Wise, then Jack's. When he reached the final line, his voice remained calm. "Tu Tien, daughter of this family." Another whisper moved through the guests. Mother Loi heard it. She turned from the altar and faced the veranda. "This correction was not made because Jack interrupted the ceremony," she said. Everyone looked at her. "It was made because I remained silent for too long." She placed one hand on the remembrance book. "Tu Tien did not demand a place in this family today. She has cared for this home, stood beside my son, and treated me with more patience than I once gave her." Mother Loi looked across the gathered relatives and neighbors. "If anyone believes her name does not belong on this page, say it while I am standing here." No one answered. Mother Loi waited. The only sound was rain falling from the edge of the roof. She faced the altar again. Then let the ceremony continue. Mother Loi lit her incense first. Jack followed. Tu Tien placed hers beside them. Outside, the rain fell heavily across the garden in Lotus Pond. Under the veranda, no one moved away from the altar. After the guests had eaten, Jack found Tu Tien alone near the Lotus Pond. She held the remembrance book closed against her chest. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I do not know yet." "Do you regret signing it?" "No." She looked back toward the house. "But one line in a book cannot repair everything." "I know. It does not erase the family that threw me out. It does not erase the years I believed I had failed as a woman." "I know." "You are not going to tell me that my name proves I belong here?" "No." "Why not?" "Because the page can only record what we prove to you every day." Tu Tien studied his face. "When I saw the blank line, I became angry," Jack said. "I wanted to correct it before asking whether that was what you wanted. But you stopped. Because you told me to. You listened. That matters." Mother Loi approached from the veranda carrying 3 cups of tea. She handed one to Jack and another to Tu Tien before sitting beside them. "I cannot change the years before you came here," she said, "and I cannot promise that I will never make another mistake." Tu Tien looked at her. "What can you promise?" Mother Loi glanced toward the doorway. "That you will not have to stand at the back of this family while I remain silent." Tu Tien held the warm cup between both hands. "That is enough for today." Before sunset, Uncle Dung returned the remembrance book to the altar. This time, he left it open to the corrected page. Jack did not hang it like an award. Mother Loi did not call the guest back to look at it. Tu Tien did not take a photograph. The book simply remained where the family would see it every morning. That evening, Jack placed 3 bowls on the table. Mother Loi sat on one side. Tu Tien sat on the other. Uncle Dung complained that the rain had soaked half the firewood, and Mother Loi told him he should have covered it before the storm. For the first time that day, Tu Tien laughed. The remembrance book rested in the next room. Her name was written inside it. But the stronger proof was not on the page. It was the ordinary sound of her bowl touching the table. It was Mother Loi asking whether she wanted more rice. It was Jack waiting until both women were seated before he began to eat. Tu Tien had not been added to the family simply because a blank line needed to be filled. She had been given the right to write her own name, and this time, no door closed behind her.